In the textbook, Velázquez addresses the ethic of care and virtue theory, two approaches to ethics that find their historical foundations in Aristotle. In this video and the next, we'll take a look at Aristotle's view of flourishing and also his views on virtue theory. I will argue, in the course of these two videos, that the ethic of care and virtue theory are best understood together in an Aristotelian context. Our outline is as follows. First, discuss Aristotle's notion of human nature. Then, his idea of the telos, which is the completion or fulfillment of human nature. And then look briefly at his description of human flourishing, which he believes is the ultimate end of all human action. The foundation of ethics, according to Aristotle, is human nature. For Aristotle, ethics is a functional term. In other words, to be ethical is to be good as a human being, to be a good member of our species. It's functional in the same sense that the word good is functional in the sentence, "This is a good tree for the front yard," or "This is a good color for our living room," or "This is a good computer." We first understand the function of the thing or the purpose of it, and then we can judge it in accordance with that function. When Aristotle discusses ethics, he starts with the question, what is a human being? Human beings are by their very nature goal-oriented. Every action we take has a good or a telos in mind. For instance, when I'm listening to a lecture, I might take notes. The telos or purpose of taking notes is to remember the information. The reason I want to remember that information is for it to guide my life in some way, and perhaps for me to use it as I fill out a midterm or I do a term paper. Every action we take has some sort of good, and Aristotle says these immediate goals or goods are subordinate in our mind to still further ends. What we're interested in when we discuss ethics is the ultimate telos for human beings. Aristotle says the ultimate goal, the ultimate telos or aim or perfection at which all of our individual actions aim is in Greek called eudaimonia. A good translation in English might be thriving or flourishing. Eudaimonia is the full development and expression of all of our truly human capacities in the context of a flourishing polis or community. Humans, in order to thrive, need relationships. When Aristotle says that we need a polis, or he says we're political beings, what he means is, like bees or ants, we're not built so as to thrive as individuals in isolation. Instead, we are the kind of being that thrives in community. Every single different kind of relationship that we have draws something else out of our personality. It draws something else out of our mind or our soul or our inclinations for acting. We're one way with family and another way at work, one way with a child, another way with a parent, one way in a political setting, one way in a business setting, and so forth. So it's very important for us to cultivate healthy human relationships. This really is the foundation of human flourishing, according to Aristotle. Of course, this is the primary connection to what Velázquez talks about in the text as the ethic of care. The ethic of care says that concrete relationships are a priority for us in terms of our ethical decisions. Healthy human relationships are the most important thing, and so we'll have special obligations to those who are nearer to us. For Aristotle, this care for people with whom we have concrete relationships is only one part of the flourishing life that we should aim at as human beings. What else is essential to our nature as human beings? Well, Aristotle thinks, of course, it's our rationality or our mental lives. And so a flourishing life will be one that not only involves a lot of healthy relationships, but one in which there is great intellectual development and expression of our intellectual capacities. Note that this second criterion for flourishing is not unrelated to the first. The healthiest sort of relationships will be those in which we incorporate the virtues that we'll talk about later, and those relationships in which we can share intellectual exchange, intellectual ideas, intellectual projects. In addition to intellectual growth and expression, a flourishing human life also will involve the development of our bodies. Unlike his teacher Plato, Aristotle believes that we are a composite of soul and body, that I am just as much a body as I am a soul. Therefore, if I'm going to thrive as a human being, I should try to be healthy. I should eat right, I should get rest, I should exercise my body, and I should explore the kinds of things that I can accomplish with it. The next element of flourishing, according to Aristotle, is contemplation. We could go through all the motions of accomplishing the sorts of things that humans accomplish and never come close to thriving as human beings, because human beings are contemplative people by nature. So I complete an action when I not only do the right thing, or I not only complete an intellectual or a physical project, but I contemplate it. I reflect on its meaning. I come to understand it with depth. So intellectual growth and expression, all the relationships that I'm living in, athletic growth and expression, these things by themselves are only a part of flourishing. Contemplation should be added to each one. Part of contemplation is going to be not only sort of an abstract, intellectual, objective look at human life, but also a reflection that's creative in nature. Creativity is something that is unique to humans, at least the degree and the kinds of creativity that we have. And so in order for me to thrive as a human being, I should have opportunities for creativity. Just note, by the way, that if you look at these criteria so far for flourishing, that they're very relevant to the business world. The healthiest kinds of businesses will be those that see themselves as communities, where people have genuine relationships with one another, and each person in the community has an opportunity to flourish during the hours that he or she is at work. To be able to flourish means that you need to have a job that's challenging to you, and you need to have an opportunity to reflect on the job and improve it, and you have to have the ability and the space to be creative in that job. So when Aristotle talks about flourishing as the ultimate end for human life, it's directly relevant to what a flourishing company would look like, and a flourishing company is going to be one that sees itself as a truly human community. Another aspect of flourishing, according to Aristotle, is financial resources. We actually do need to have money so that we can pursue all the sorts of things that make human life worthwhile. Aristotle adds to these criteria health and a long life. Again, Aristotle believes we are just as much body as we are soul or mind, and so it's important for us to promote health, and it's important for us to live a nice long life in order to really be the kind of human being that you would look at and say, wow, that person's thriving. The other elements of flourishing that Aristotle mentions are honor, pleasure, and virtue. He actually talks about each one of these in some depth, because many of his Greek listeners would think that honor is the purpose of human life, or that pleasure, the life of hedonism, is the purpose of human life. And those followers of Aristotle and Socrates might think that virtue or wisdom is the purpose of human life. Aristotle argues that each one of these, as valuable as it is too incomplete to be the sole purpose of human life. Each one of these elements of flourishing is integral, is essential, and adds to the beauty, the power, and the worthwhile nature of a human life well lived. So Aristotle says this in the second book of the Nicomachean Ethics. He says, if we, like archers, are going to have a chance of hitting the mark, we need to focus on the target at the very beginning of the enterprise. That's what he encourages us to do as he lays out all the different aspects of human flourishing that we should pursue in our actions. We have two main projects in our lives. The first is to build a self. Aristotle's approach to ethics is actually very invigorating in that he believes we are free. He believes that we will become that which we practice. and we'll talk a lot more about that in the next video. We will become what we practice, and so one of the main projects that I have in life is to build a self of whom I am proud. Wrapped up with this concept of building a self is to build a community. That's because the self cannot thrive without a thriving community. The community cannot thrive without a flourishing self. The two go hand in hand. So how do I build a self? By practicing character, by practicing the elements of life that I want to have, and to build those elements into the community and into the lives of those that I impact. So these two projects, building a self and building a community, are really the core of the Aristotelian vision for ethics, generally speaking, and also for ethics in a business context.